I'd like to welcome everyone to the CO podcast series, Stroke Matters. A special thank you to Advocate Aurora Health for sponsoring this podcast. My name is Christine Winicky, CO Director. The topic for today's call is technology and training your brain. I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. Jennifer Bell is a speech-language pathologist working with adults in the acute care and outpatient populations. She has led a support group for the last 8 years for people with acquired brain injuries and their families. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being our speaker for today. I'd like to have you share with our audience today, why is it difficult for some stroke survivors to use computer-based tools after having a stroke?
Well, this is a 2 or 3 tiered answer, because I think it's hard in general for anybody who may or may not have grown up in the age of technology to access anything on the computer, on a smartphone, on a tablet. So I think if you grabbed anybody over the age of where it came out at 55 or 60 off the street and said, here, try this, that I think it's going to be difficult in general. But after you've had a brain injury that may or may not have affected your speech or your language or your thinking, that kind of adds another layer on it. So I always ask people when I start with them in therapy, are you a paper pencil person or are you a computer person? And I try and tailor things to what their strengths are, but I am a really, really firm believer in new learning and new brain learning for anybody. So I never promise that I'm not going to throw in a new learning activity just to train the brain on a new skill. So, if you're not comfortable, we might just start with a tablet, and we might just start with learning how to use the tablet. There are an access of so many things that you can use now to work on. If you have trouble reading, work on trouble reading. If you have trouble speaking, work on trouble speaking. Memory and attention. I mean, the world is kind of at your fingertips in technology. And I think it's good for anybody in general just to kind of learn something new to keep the brain active and learning a new skill.
Great. So are there certain, like you had mentioned just earlier, that are there different resources for stroke survivors who use computer-based devices, like different like keyboards or mouses or I don't know, text or font size or different things that they can do to help them after they've had a stroke?
So many things. So many things, depending on what your strengths are, and depending on what you might need help with. Lots of people after stroke might experience some vision deficits, whether it be seeing double or having some pieces of their vision cut kind of in quadrants, the way your eye is. So there are different accessibility things for a computer screen. There's also different keyboards. If you're having trouble typing, there's different keyboards, there's different mouses. There's also a lot of my patients love the Dragon dictation software, because you don't have to type anything and you can send texts and receive emails and do everything just by speaking. So it really is about getting your feet wet and learning to what resources are out there. I included in this, and it'll be attached to our podcast, my favorite apps and my favorite websites. And this is something, brain retraining and brain learning has been something that's been in the news a lot about, if you do this training so many minutes a day, it's going to help this and this. And there is some truth to that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a brain injury to benefit from this. Anybody can. If you train a new skill, yeah, you're going to get better at it. So I really, really encourage people to kind of figure out what you need help with. So if you're somebody that, because of your stroke, who has had trouble reading, for instance, one of my favorite websites, and this is a good one just for anybody, is called freereadingtest.com. And this is just an example. We go on, you pick your reading level 1 through 13. You pick your type of story you want to read. You read it. And then after you read it, it asks you some comprehension questions. And from that, it generates how many words a minute you're reading and what your comprehension was. So automatically you get some personal feedback. Hey, I'm reading 120 words a minute. The normal adult high school educated person usually reads 250 to 300. I got something to work on. But I didn't comprehend it. So that's just one of the free resources out there. If you're having trouble with memory, you in your tablet or your phone or your computer, you search memory games or memory training. And there's going to be those websites that are going to want to charge you for them. And those are okay. And it's a good way. And they track your progress. Lumosity is one. I think FitBrains is one. And they're great things. And if you use it, it's kind of like a gym. But there's a lot of websites out there that are free. And I posted those on the PDF. Some of my favorites are queendom.com is a really, really good one for memory and kind of quick thinking kind of things. I think SharpBrains is one. And you kind of have to go through some ads and things, but they're really great free resources. And same with apps. There's a million apps out there. And I just put some of my favorites on there, but all you go, it's kind of the same for any smart device. If you go in the search engine and type in what your skill is that you want to work on, you're going to get some feedback about some things that help you work on them. And you can pay for them, but my experience is there's some great free ones out there.
So this would be sort of similar to what you're kind of talking about, is more kind of computer aided communication tools. And so do you do like computer based therapy too? Have you been doing that?
Since we're in this new age now where people can't come to us so much in the hospital anymore, we have been doing a lot of telehealth. And that's been kind of a new learning exercise for everybody, us included. But there is also some great, and because of that, they were kind of coming out already, but because of that, there's some great apps both for patients and providers like me. My favorite is Constant Therapy. Like I can actually do therapy with somebody and I can send you homework assignments on the app that goes straight to your device. And then I get notified when you do them. So there is so many things like that out there that are so incredible that, it takes some work to get used to them, just like learning anything new. Right. So it really opened up a lot of doors for therapy and for doing stuff on your own. I'm a big proponent I love the technology and I want to do what someone's going to excel at and what they're best at, but learning something new. So.
Right. And they can do that. Jennifer, can they do that? Because I've known a lot of stroke survivors. There's some that they just can't even figure out using the computer and their brain so can they do their therapy or do that stuff even over their phone?
They can. It's a little bit tougher on the phone because it's so small.
Okay.
But my experience, these tablets, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a certain type of tablet. Tablets have really, really come down in price. And you can get a good tablet that does what you need it to do for under $100. But the problem is, and we've run into a lot of trouble, is you got to have some internet connection and some good internet connections at home. And that honestly is what's been the biggest hurdle, is getting hooked up to the internet. But I always encourage everybody. I'm like, invite your friends over, invite those grandkids over. I invite somebody over who is more comfortable with it. And it's a great learning activity. Mm-hmm. It really is. It's been, it's put a lot of smiles on a lot of people's faces. And it's having the younger generation that grew up with this, that doesn't even think twice about it, help us that are a little bit less young, I say, kind of learn some new things. So I'm a firm believer in family interaction and games and playing games and having fun, but working on what you need to work on at the same time.
That's a great idea. It's a great idea in this age, whether, and you can, as we all know, you can have a stroke young or old. So everybody can take advantage of this. And if you are a little bit older, young people can help you through, this, like you said, when you're talking about tablets, you're talking about like an iPad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, there's Android tablets and even Kindles have apps on them now.
Right. Right.
So that is really, in the last couple years, tablets have really become, because you can do it on your phone, but it's too small to see.
Right. The screen's small.
Yeah,
right.
The screen's pretty small.
So before we end the call, do you have any other resources for, cognitive and memory? You mentioned quite a few already that, like different apps or websites. Do you have any more that you want to suggest, or should we just look for that PDF?
I love talking about memory. Memory is one of my favorite things to talk about. So here, it's not an app. This is a good old-fashioned, grab your pen and paper right now, and I want you to write this down. Memory is one of those things that is influenced by everything that's around you, right? So in order to remember something, you got to be able to be paying attention to it in the first place. So I have an acronym for memory that can help your memory and anybody's memory, starting right this second. And it is WRAP, WRAP. The W stands for, if you want to remember something, the easiest way to do it is write it down. Keep a calendar, put it on your phone, write it on the fridge, write it down in a notebook. Easiest way to remember something. The R stands for repeat it. You want to remember something, the second way to do it is to repeat it. You can repeat it to yourself. You can repeat it in your head. You can repeat it back to somebody. If I wanted to remember your name was Christine, I would say, hi, Christine. Just repeated it again. A stands for associated. And now this is something that you usually work a lot in therapy, learning to associate things together so that instead of trying to remember 5 random things for the grocery store, you kind of connected them together to associate them and they'll come together easier. And the P stands for picture it. Most people are visual learners. So when they see something, they're much more likely to remember it than if they just are trying to force it into their brain. So putting a visual picture in your head will most likely remember it. Write it, repeat it, associate it, and picture it. That is the key to helping your memory.
And that's for all of us. And that's for
anybody.
Absolutely anybody. You don't have to have a brain injury to have some memory difficulties. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Well, thank you again, Jennifer, for being our presenter. If you'd like to listen to today's podcast or past podcasts, you can visit the SEO website at www.sseeo.org. Thank you. And thank you again, Jennifer.
Thanks a lot.